Ian is asking, do you think Russia will step into war with United States and its allies over Ukraine? Both sides have put their troops and weapons on standby. I mean, it would be the most insane thing Russia could ever do. I mean, never say never, but I don't understand what the hell as like is Russia like suicidal? Like, I mean, the most if you think about it rationally, the most likely thing that they're trying to do is just to posture and threaten so that they could get some concessions. But I mean, Russia can't afford going to war. Russia would, you know, I mean, it would be the end of him. Yeah, I mean, like not the end of them, as in it would basically drag them into a war that they cannot win, a multi-year war that they have to pay so much for it, something that they will no way be able to afford. It will threaten the deals that they have with Germany over their gas line that they have, right? And it will unite the Western world in putting more sanctions on Russia. So like it would be devastating. It would be devastating to Russia's economy. Why would they do that? I mean, that would be like, I mean, Russia is already has lost its superpower status, and it's becoming weaker and weaker every year. But this will expect like this will make it their decline much exponentially a lot faster than it already is. Why would they do that? I think it's just posturing. It's just like, I mean, I'm not saying that's not going to happen. I'm just saying if they do decide to go ahead with that, then they're insane. Um, yeah, but just a few things actually about this whole Russia situation. It's so amazing how a lot of leftists, you know, predictably have come and be like, "Oh, we shouldn't be there. We shouldn't like United States shouldn't support like NATO shouldn't be supporting Ukraine. This is an act of aggression." Bull fucking shit. Act of aggression? How is it an act of aggression? Okay, how is it an act of aggression? They're like, Putin is demanding that Ukraine doesn't join NATO. Who the fuck are you to decide what Ukraine does if they want to join or not join? It's not up for you to decide. Like, what happens to a country's like sovereignty and independence? Who the fuck do you think you are to make decisions for Ukraine? Or like, well, it's not my border. So it's not your fucking country. It's an independent country. Like, who do you? I mean, I'm not saying that Ukraine is likely to join NATO, but who is Putin to make demands like that? Like, oh, you don't get to join NATO. Says who? Who made you the boss of the world? And people are like, well, yeah, well, the United States is like, and Western European countries, they don't get to decide. Why not? Like, it's a mutual agreement between two countries, an organization and a country. Nothing is being forced on anybody. Ukraine is an independent country. If they seem to want to be joining NATO, justifiably, given that they've already been attacked by Russia. It's amazing. Like, Russia has already attacked Ukraine, and NATO is like, help, and people are like, okay, and people are like, act of aggression against Russia, act of aggression against Russia for like defending itself from a country that has already attacked it and invaded and took a whole bunch of parts of it. How is it an act of aggression? This is purely defensive, justifiably so. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think like Ukraine is going to invade Russia? like that's an act of aggression. Like sending United States sending missiles to Ukraine is an act of aggression. Really? Ukraine was like, Russia was doing nothing, and Ukraine was like, oh, we're going to invade Russia. We a country, a small country, we're going to invade a country with nuclear weapon. Oh yeah, that Ukraine had ambitions to attack Russia without any aggression from Russia before. This was not at all defensive. What the hell is wrong with people? Like, people are like, oh, this is Western imperialism. Russia has the right. Oh, look, NATO is coming to Russia's borders, and Russia has every right to be afraid. Bull fucking shit. Why do you think NATO is? NATO is. Do you think NATO is goal is to one day like take over Russia. This is purely defensive. This is all in response to Russians' aggressions. It makes complete sense for countries around that region. If anything, this is like justifies NATO. I mean, I'm so glad that Trump is not in power right now. God damn it. Imagine if Trump was in power with all the anti-NATO stuff that he was saying, right? You can see how important NATO is. Like, Russia keeps complaining about NATO, and then he provides justification for the expansion of NATO. And now countries that never considered wanting to be part of NATO, like I think like there was another countries in Scandinavia. Now we're like, okay, we might want to join NATO as well with all this aggression by Russia, right? They never wanted to join NATO, and like Russia complains about an expansion of something that it is the cause of justification for its expansion. Guys, this is so insane, right? We need like, and also fucking Germany and now also France. You guys better get in line and support like United States over this. Like, this is so bullshit. Like, we are, the whole Western liberal order is under threat. And these countries are like, oh, but we need gas. Bitch, this is like the trend, the direction of things. China and Russia, these are not countries with the values that made the world a better place ever since World War II. Your unity, the unity between Europe, Western Europe, and North American countries, plus South Korea and Japan, right? And Hong Kong and Taiwan, I guess, and all some other countries. That's what stabilized the world. Don't fuck around with that. Russia is such a pathetically weak country right now. You should be able to handle this. They shouldn't be able to threaten this world order that has made the world a more peaceful place. You can't, Germany needs to, Germany and France needs, and and everybody else need to be completely backing United States against Russia right now. Whereas Europe's insistence on like, oh, we need to move off fossil fuels and stuff like that. And now this is not, this is not a time for Western powers to be divided. There needs to be a very strong united front against Russia. And again, another reason why I'm so happy that Trump is not in power. Fucking messing around, like attacking your allies, alienating your allies. Imagine if he was in power right now. I mean, some people might also criticize AUKUS to say like, well, maybe the reason why France is now also talking to Russia about some deals is because of AUKUS, right? So yeah, that's fair. But China was a threat as well. So, anyways, but that's another discussion. Okay. Oh my God, this is the same as the other question. Do you think Putin will back down if West? So I am saying, do you think Putin will back down if the West sanctions his alleged girlfriend from traveling abroad? I'm not joking. I have heard this being discussed. Plus, there are other sanctions of pulling Russia out of international SWIFT transactions and dollar denominations. I haven't heard about this girlfriend part. I just heard Biden talking about looking at personal sanctions against Putin. I don't know. I don't know if that's serious. I haven't heard, but the SWIFT part is going to be tricky, right? Because the United States doesn't have. I don't know. Like, that's a European thing, right? I don't know how much control the United States has over SWIFT transactions. I mean, if you do use that, it would undermine SWIFT as well. So that's a thing that you have to consider, right? If more deals happens outside of the SWIFT, because Russia does have some alternative ways to do transactions. But I don't know. But sanctions need to be. I don't know what the right way is to do sanctions on Russia. But yeah, we need sanctions on Russia yesterday. Like, I think like the sanctions should be on already. Like, people are like, oh, if you attack we will have sanctions. Oh, like no, you should already have sanctions because of all this posturing, right? There needs to be a more aggressive stance against Russia. I already mentioned the rest of it, but so I'm gonna move on.
Hey guys, if you want to join these streams live, get your comments and questions read by Ali and Armin and the guests, and most importantly, to get full access to the full video versions of all these episodes, become a patron. Link in the description below.